Hey everybody, Gooman here with part 4 of the new Monster Roundup series for Monster Hunter Wilds, where I look at all the new monsters who were introduced in this title. I'm talking about what I liked, what I disliked, and anything else that comes to mind. Today we are covering Ajarakan, new Udra, and lastly, spoiler alert for the final zone of the game, 3, 2, 1. I am also covering Zewu. I think that's how the characters in-game refer to him. I'm not gonna do the whole Shoo-woo meme, so don't ask. I will not be calling him Shoo-woo. I do know we fight the new Guardian-type monsters by this point in the game, but I wanted to dedicate a whole video just for them as a category, since I do assume we will get more of them, and I wanted this video series to have somewhat of a coherent flow. So after the Guardian video, assuming I didn't miss anything else, that should just leave Jindahat and Arkveld for their own video after that. So be excited, I know I am. It is absolutely not required to watch the previous videos in this series, however, doing so will help me out a lot and make me feel very good about it. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. If you're into this sort of thing, please consider hitting the like button, saying something in the comments, and even subscribing to my channel as a little treat. Alright, let's get started. So first up today, of course, is Ajarakan. So this guy can use fire abilities. However, his fire isn't necessarily something that he produces internally. It's created by the sparks made from smashing his body parts together or against hard surfaces. His back is made of a special mineral that can create sparks really easily, so as he drags his back against the ground, he can create these sparks, then he'll just throw at you to do fire damage. So he does not necessarily produce fire, but he can use it very well throughout the fight. And of course, as he gets mad, his enrage mechanic is that he smacks himself with his tail, and then kind of lights himself on fire, basically. And then he gives himself a little fire finish to everything he does. So aesthetically, I like this fight a lot. I'm sure that's tiring to hear at this point. Oh, it's a new monster, I like it. Yeah, of course. Capcom did a great job with the monster roster in this game. This guy looks cool. It is what it is. And I did find this fight challenging than most others, at least on the first go-around. I didn't quite understand how to avoid his attacks. I didn't quite understand how they worked at all, the way they hit, especially that whole full back tackle move that he does often. That used to get me all the time, because I just didn't get it. The key to that move, by the way, is that it actually hits 2 different spots, depending on kind of what timing you're looking at. Another thing that he does, with some of his abilities, if you get hit, you'll get something called Blast of Light, which is a debuff that on its own does nothing, but if you allow it to expire, it will blow you up and do a bit of damage to you. It can also be ignited if you take another hit the same type, which will again do bonus damage to you. The easiest way to get rid of it is to just dodge roll, just like fire, 3 or 4 times and it'll go away. So the big danger move is this one, where he starts with a roar, shoves his hands into the ground, and then after a brief wind-up, he will explode the ground in your direction, for lack of a better way to put it. During this time, pretty much from the moment where he shoves his hand into the ground all the way to the end of it, his arms become a temporary weak spot. So if you're quick enough, you can try to get to him rather than running away from him or to the side. You could try to run at him for a focus strike and then interrupt his attack completely. That is an option. I find it easier to do that with weapons like Sword and Shield or Dual Blades, where the focus strike is a little faster. I think mechanically this fight is pretty tough. I think it's totally normal to struggle against him. A lot of his attacks hit super fast. They could be a little difficult to avoid. I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily confusing, but because they hit so fast, you might end up in like a cycle of just eternal punishment. You're just taking hit after hit. And in cases like that, it's really important to just disengage a little bit, let him just go through his full combos, and then kind of jump back in when you have an opening. Power Clash is possible on a lot of his punch attacks, if you're looking for those. Never pause your Endemic Life collection. That's always the most important thing you can do. Anytime he winds up above his head, safe bet, just roll to the sides. aside from that shoulder check attack, the fight doesn't necessarily try to trick you. The fight is straightforward, in my opinion. It's just fast, and that's where the challenge comes from. But the way it telegraphs its dangerous attacks, I think, are really consistent, which is always good. Not every fight needs to be like a trickster. I do like this fight quite a bit. I would put it in the same camp as I would for Doshaguma, as like a good duel buddy. If you're getting comfortable with a weapon and you want to try to figure out counter timings or stuff like that, I think this is another good practice fight. I would say it's quite a bit more difficult than Doshaguma, but if that's what you're looking for, then perfect. There you go. Apparently it enjoys eating salamanders, so that's good to know. Yeah, when I play the game, and I'm just all about combat and hunting monsters as fast as possible. So a lot of these little ecological details I don't even notice until I'm making these videos. So this has been a really fun experience. I'm really glad you guys got to enjoy this process with me. I'm having a great time here. So when you break this guy's parts, you will usually get the heavy blunt pod as the usable slinger ammo. This is definitely my least favorite one. Like, it hits the hardest, but it's the projectile is just so awkward to use, and I feel like I miss a good 3/4 of them. If you do get a hit, especially on its face, I'm pretty sure it's a guaranteed knockdown though. So good luck with that. Stuff like that I think is actually worth practicing, like, and then getting used to. As Wilds continues to get updates, the monsters will get more difficult, and you'll be required to engage with its systems a lot more. So it's good to build up the skill set that you have access to now, while the pressure is a little bit lower. One of those is the slinger, which is extremely useful in most situations, I will say. The Ajarakan is one of those monsters that feel really good to fight. He's one of those guys where you can't really get by just kind of randomly button mashing. You do have to engage with its mechanics to some extent, and every time you do, it does make, at least for me, it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. Like, each time I get it on the ground, or I do a perfect block, or interrupt the big attacks or something, it feels like I'm actually engaging with the game in a productive way. So every time I win against an Ajarakan, it just feels really good. So I went for the tail cut. I wanted to see if it makes a difference in the way it goes enraged, or if it's just purely aesthetic, since it does need the bulk of its tail to smack against its back to create those sparks. But it's entirely possible all that's superficial, which is fine. I would rather be able to definitively say whether cutting the tail will make the fight easier, or oh, there you go. There's the answer. You can still do all its strongest attacks. All in all, I think Ajarakan is a fantastic monster. It looks cool. The fight is awesome. The armor set, meh, looks okay. Not the biggest fan. I think the first couple of times I fought it, I was a little lukewarm on it. Wasn't the biggest fan, but now that I'm used to it and I can appreciate what I originally thought were annoying attacks, once I actually learned how to adequately deal with them, the overall design intent of this monster just made a lot more sense, which helped me appreciate it a lot more. So me and the monkey are cool. The monkey's alright. I think it's a good addition to the ape lineup of the Monster Hunter series. And I know we have like 3 of them in this game. Of course, we're missing the big one, but Ajarakan will do for now. So next up for us is the new Udra. This is the apex monster of the basin. As you can see, the flash bug has no effect on it. New Udra represents a whole new monster category that they added in Monster Hunter. I feel like it's been a really long time since that happened. I actually don't know when the last time a new monster category was even added, since usually if a monster looks outlandish enough, it's just categorized as an elder dragon and they don't really worry about it. For this one, it seems like they want to actually start adding in these wacky creatures without necessarily relegate them to at the top of the food chain. So to some extent, I think a lot of people's experience with this fight is that even if the overall combat difficulty or the damage it does is in line with all the other monsters, people might find this fight a bit more challenging because they're not used to fighting, you know, a monster that looks like this, right? Overall, I do like this monster, even though I think on average this might be probably the most frustrating one for me as well, just because I have to go through like the learning process of figuring out like how this fight works at all. Overall, I do like this fight quite a bit, although I do find it a little bit frustrating sometimes when I get hit by something where I feel like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That definitely happens more with this fight than any other fight. Still, to this day, even after however many hunts that I've done. This is another monster that can grab you. Be careful of that. This monster's grab hurts a lot. So this is one of those fights where you want to be on the lookout for any ammo that you can use. And then there's plenty of them to find pretty much in every arena. And being an octopus, this fight does have probably one of the most number of breakable parts I've ever seen in a monster. You can cut off each of these tentacles, and if you manage to cut all of them off before the fight ends, you are treated to the saddest looking monster probably in the game. It sounds a little bit sadistic, but just watching it try to like fight back against you with eight, was it like 6 little nubs, is just hilarious. So one thing that makes this fight extra dangerous, obviously, is that it's just about omnidirectional. Most of the moves it can do while facing you, it can also do while you're at its back. It is quite a bit challenging to find a relatively safe spot to do your big damage combos off of. Maybe while you're learning this fight, it's a lot more reasonable to just take pot shots. Don't go too crazy on big combos. Just do 1 or 2 hits at a time. And of course, aim for the tentacles, try to cut them off. Aside from that, not much to say about this fight. It does trigger some traumatic memories, fighting a big monster called the Carcos, which was, in my opinion, not a great fight. But I certainly prefer this fight over that one. This guy does look super cool. I like the head. That looks sort of like a helmet. The big move that you want to watch out for happens when it's on fire. It rears up and then shoots a big cone of fire kind of in your direction. If you don't have a shield weapon, you want to get out of that. That should be pretty obvious. However, if you do have a shield weapon, depending on which one, you might have the option to kind of do a fun little beam clash kind of move where you keep your guard up as you charge into the monster and try to do a counterattack. If you can pull that one off, congratulations. I mean, it's super fun to do. The fire attack from this guy kind of happens at a weird angle, so more often than not, you'll probably just whiff it, but you won't take that much damage, so you'll be alright. Just remember to go for the tentacles. Right now I have all but one of them chopped off. I'm gonna see if I can get all of them, because that's just the type of person I am. And there you go, that's every tentacle cut. I still struggle to figure out what all of its attack telegraphs kind of mean. I do find this fight really difficult to read. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, obviously, if you feel like a challenge, you probably want it to be hard to read, but for me, I prefer to be able to understand the fight. So when you take that into account, I definitely don't rate this fight as high as even other Apex monsters. That said, I mean, this is not a bad fight. It's very cool. I'm glad it's in here. I enjoy its visual distinction from pretty much every other monster in the game. This is definitely a very unique fight. I think Udra being here does make Wilds a better game. But that being said, I also wouldn't mind if we never see it again. I think that's totally fine too. This will be the last spoiler alert for what we're about to talk about. We're talking about a monster that wasn't shown in any of the marketing on a map that also was not shown. So this is going to be Area 5, and we're fighting one of the last monsters you'll see in the low-rank story of the game. So if you haven't gotten to the point where you're comfortable with that, then feel free to click off. I will miss you, but I'm sure I'll see you next time, all right? So with that said, we are in the final zone, the ruins of Wyveria, and we are fighting Zewu. I believe that's how, and this is a particularly small one, wow. I believe Zewu is how the characters in game pronounce it. No, I'm not gonna call it Zhuwu. Alright. It's fun. I do that with friends, but I'm not gonna do that in a YouTube video. His name is not Zhuwu. Come on now. But my god, just look at him. He is... It's just like Rumpupolo. I mean, this guy is grotesque to look at. Just looking at him makes me want to hunt it. So to that end, great. Aesthetically, 10 out of 10. This guy looks awesome. This is obviously another cephalopod. Capcom getting good use out of the new category that they added in Wilds. So instead of being a fire-breathing octopus, we have a we have Hachi from One Piece. So that's great. Any One Piece reference gets an 11 out of 10 for me. That's the end of the video. Great fight. That's all that needs to be said. No, but if I had to choose which I like more between this and New Udra, I would probably pick Jewu, just because I like its moveset a lot more. And I'm also a big fan of the aesthetics of this fight as well. It has, I don't know how to explain it. It has like a wandering swordsman vibe, which I dig. I mean, I like any monster that'll use its appendages as like human-centric weapon. Just as an example, in Generations and then again in Iceborne, there was a monster called the Glavenus, which was a T-Rex looking brute wyvern that had a sword on its tail, and it used its tail as a sword. And that was one of the coolest fights in the game. Huge fan of stuff like that, because it's like, are they really monsters? They're using these appendages like we use our tools. I'm not a Zewu truther. It's just an octopus with sharp tendrils. I mean, that's what it is. But I think it's really cool when they can incorporate these like pseudo-human elements into a monster. Like this is an octopus that stabs you with its like. How do you explain that ecologically? Throughout the fight, as you kind of whack at the tentacles, the sword part does kind of shatter and forces it to sort of reposition a little bit, so it can use another tentacle and its attacks while the one you broke regenerates. So there's this fun little progression that happens throughout the fight. You can definitely feel the amount of damage that you do to it, but at the same time, because it regenerates so fast that it's almost kind of pointless to point out. But I like it. I like stuff like that. It's like a little detail that, you know, somebody put in there for a reason, and I appreciate that. Now let's watch this guy crawl into a tiny hole. That's always fun. So another reason why I prefer this fight over New Udra is the telegraphs just are a lot clearer to me. If the reason why I don't like New Udra is that the telegraphs don't make sense, well, this one does make sense. That's why I like it. I'm a very simple guy. I just like to be able to understand things. That's just my personality. And for this fight, I mean, obviously, since you're fighting against a sword user, essentially, as long as you kind of understand where those sword attacks are coming from, then you have a better understanding of the fight, right? I really like when it kind of like dodges back and then follows up with that sort of circular swipe. I don't know why that fight is just so fun to just kind of like meet head on. Since I usually use weapons with a shield, I love timing the block to do it. It just feels cinematic and it feels good to block. After that move, it often does a little spinny attack as a follow-up, so be careful. Zewu has a couple of super dangerous attacks. The first one is very obviously the one where it winds up with its underside shown, and then it tackles you with its whole body, mouth first. Obviously try to avoid that one, but hopefully the telegraph is clear enough to sort of figure out what you need to do there. The other dangerous attack is when it raises two of its tentacles in with the sharp bits hanging out, and then goes into like a flurry of attacks. That's the other big move. That one's, I think, a little bit harder to avoid if you stay close. It does feel a little weird saying this about a fairly omnidirectional monster, but the safest thing you can do against this guy is honestly just circle it. So yeah, that's the big flurry of attacks you want to avoid. I just kind of got around it by running in a circle around it. If I have to give you a tip on how to beat this monster, just circle around it every so often. A lot of its attacks hit really far forward, making them really dangerous if you just kind of stay in front of it. And then if you want to know the block timing for that mouth charge, once it presents itself, before he charges, he will kind of wind even further backwards before he lunges at you. So that's the timing that you're looking for. So as we approach its nest for the end of the fight, I do have to say I do kind of love that the Zewu nest, because of its ecological place in the game, being the hunter of guardian type monsters, its nest is kind of like in a side area rather than being part of like some large centerpiece of the map. Like the main point of this part of the map are the little cocoons for all the guardians. But then you look at this opening in the map and just kind of off to the side, it feels really unimportant. It's just like a space that this guy just kind of crawled into and then just made it its home. And so I do kind of like that. I could see the Zewu coming back in future titles as like an invasive species. That'll be really neat. I'm sure we can find some excuse for him to come back, even though the purpose of this monster obviously is to fight against guardians. But overall, I think the fight is a good mix of challenge and fun. For Cephalopod, the attacks don't feel too difficult to read. It's like even if the movements kind of look and feel a little bit alien, they're not unreasonably confusing, and I'm a big fan of that. This fight feels different from the rest without necessarily feeling too comfortable, and I appreciate that. I think Capcom did a great job with this fight. And the armor set also looks really cool, so I highly recommend just fighting this enough to grab the whole thing. Well, with that, that's it for me on this video. Thank you again so much for watching. The next video is going to be all about the Guardian monsters, but as a category, not necessarily looking at the specific Guardian monsters for their own sake, but talking about Guardian fights in general and what mechanics they pose that I think are interesting, since the actual Guardian monsters are monsters that we've already seen before. But I think what the category introduces is interesting enough for its own little video, so I'm going to do it that way. And then, of course, the video after that should be the big boss fight video that, I'm excited to make. So hopefully you guys are excited for that. Just a couple more to go until we're all caught up through the roster. After that, I'll need to figure out what other kind of videos I want to make. But that is a problem for another time. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.